The Journey to Learning English, a story of determination and growth. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills, lived a young boy named Amir. He was bright, curious, and full of dreams. But there was one thing that he felt he lacked, the ability to speak English fluently. It was a skill that many people in his village admired, and something that he believed would open doors to a world beyond his own. Amir lived in a rural area where most of the people spoke their native language. English was not widely spoken, and there were no schools nearby that offered lessons in it. However, Amir had heard stories of people who had traveled to faraway places, learned new things, and achieved great success, all because they knew how to speak English. The more he thought about it, the more determined he became to learn the language. One day, Amir decided to take action. He went to the village library, which had a modest collection of books, hoping to find something that could guide him on his journey to learn English. There, he found an old book titled English for Beginners with a cover that looked worn from years of use. He checked it out and brought it home, eager to start his learning. Step 1, starting with the basics, thought the first chapter of the book introduced him to the alphabet, something he already knew, but it was the first step. He practiced each letter carefully, making sure he could pronounce them properly. Then, he moved on to simple words and phrases. The book taught him how to introduce himself, ask for directions, and just greet others. Amir spent hours each day memorizing new words, repeating them aloud, and trying to form sentences. At first, he struggled with pronunciation. English words often seemed strange to him, especially when they didn't follow the rules of his native language. For example, the word though seemed impossible to pronounce correctly, and through sounded too similar to through, but Amir didn't give up. He understood that learning a new language required patience. He began to practice English with the only person he knew who spoke a little bit of it, his older sister, Layla. She had learned some English in school, but wasn't fluent. Together, they would practice small conversations in the evening, repeating phrases like hello, how are you? And my name is Amir. It was difficult at first, but slowly, Amir began to feel more comfortable with the words. Step 2, listening and imitating. Amir knew that to truly master English, he needed to practice listening and speaking, not just reading and writing. One day, he borrowed a small, old radio from a friend and began tuning into English language programs. He started listening to the news, songs, and stories in English. Though he couldn't understand everything, he began to pick up common words and phrases. He listened to the rhythm of the language, the way sentences were structured, and the way native speakers pronounce words. He would often pause the radio and repeat the sentences he heard, imitating the pronunciation as closely as possible. Sometimes, he would even record his voice on the radio, play it back, and compare it with the original speaker's voice to see how closely he matched the pronunciation. One evening, as he was listening to a radio program about the weather, Amir heard the phrase, "It's a beautiful day, isn't it?" He repeated it several times, trying to match the intonation and rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a breakthrough. He realized that listening and imitating was one of the best ways to learn how to speak naturally. Step 3, building vocabulary. Amir knew that the more words he learned, the more confident he would become in speaking English. He made a habit of writing down new words every day. Whenever he came across a word he didn't understand, he would look it up in a dictionary or ask someone who knew. He made flashcards for each new word, writing the word on one side and its meaning in his native language on the other. Every evening, he would go through the flashcards, testing himself and trying to memorize the words ... One day, as he was walking through the village, he saw an old woman selling vegetables at the market. She greeted him with a smile and said, "Hello, young man. Would you like to buy some tomatoes?" Amir, who had just learned the word tomato in English, was thrilled. He smiled back and said, "Yes, I'd like to buy some tomatoes, please." The woman looked at him in surprise, but Amir felt a rush of excitement. He had just used English in a real conversation, and it felt amazing. As weeks went by, Amir's vocabulary grew. He began to recognize English words everywhere, on signs, in books, and even in the songs he listened to. He learned words related to food, animals, nature, and daily activities. Each new word was a small victory, and with every victory, his confidence grew. Step 4. Speaking with confidence. One of the most challenging aspects of learning English for Amir was speaking with confidence. He was afraid of making mistakes and sounding foolish. But his sister Layla reminded him, the more you speak, the better you'll get. Don't worry about mistakes. Everyone makes them. The important thing is to keep trying. Amir took her advice to heart. He began to speak more often, not only with Layla, also with his friends and anyone who would listen. He started small, asking simple questions like, "How are you?" or "What is your name?" Gradually, he worked his way up to more complex sentences and conversations. He even joined a small group of villagers who were also learning, and together they practiced speaking in English every week. Though there were many times when he stumbled over words or couldn't find the right way to express himself, Amir didn't let that discourage him. Each mistake was an opportunity to learn and improve. Step 5. Reading and writing. Amir's next challenge was reading and writing in English. He started with simple books and articles, reading aloud to practice his pronunciation. At first, it was slow and difficult, but with time, he became more comfortable with the language. He also began writing short stories, keeping a journal in English to document his progress. One day, after months of practice, Amir finished reading his first full English book. It wasn't long, but it was an accomplishment that made him proud. He could now read stories in English, understand them, and even talk about them with others. Step 6. The reward of persistence. Months turned into a year, and Amir's English improved significantly. He could now hold conversations with native speakers, watch English movies without subtitles, and even read books in English with ease. His confidence had grown, and he felt empowered by the language he had worked so hard to learn. One day, Amir received a letter from a university in a distant city, offering him a scholarship to study abroad. The letter was written in English, and Amir read it with excitement. He had done it. He had learned English, and it had opened a door to a whole new world. As he stood in front of the mirror, reading the letter out loud in English, Amir smiled. He knew that the journey to learning English had not been easy, but every step had been worth it. His determination, hard work, and willingness to make mistakes had paid off. And so, Amir's journey continued, with English as his tool. He was ready to take on new challenges, explore the world, and chase his dreams. The language that once seemed so foreign to him had become his bridge to a brighter future. Conclusion. Amir's story is a reminder that learning English, or any language, is not a quick or easy process. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to make mistakes. But with dedication, consistent practice, and the right mindset, anyone can learn English and open doors to new opportunities. The journey may be long, but every step taken is one step closer to success.